Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to participate. I just want to encourage everybody to turn off their cameras and also to mute their microphone when they're not speaking so that there's no interference and we can have a nice, smooth session without disruption, and also being respectful of each other when you are finished, when you are sharing. Just go back and mute your microphone after you are completed with your comments. So just as a reminder, the session today is turning inside out, and it's an interesting thing. There was a movie about that, and it was quite entertaining, but actually also very realistic in some levels. And this particular workshop was not inspired by the movie, but because it predated the movie. But when I say turning inside out, and you look at the image, but you also close your eyes and just imagine what that would mean to you if I was to say, turn yourself inside out. Turn yourself inside out. Turn yourself inside out. What do you see? What do you notice? I'm turning myself inside out. What's there?
Just a point of light.
Yeah. There's a lot more than just a point of light, and we'll go into that because we will explore all the many different dimensions of actually experiencing that sense of turning myself inside out and taking into consideration all the components, all the different parts of us as we begin to journey through this process.
Santi,
Yes,
I would say I feel exposed
you feel exposed. Yeah.
from the things that are inside that maybe I think I'm hiding or not sharing. Inside out, it becomes exposed.
Yeah. You become naked, and even further than you go inward and you see all that stuff that might be hidden, right? All that hidden stuff comes out,
Exactly.
exposed, the stuff we don't want to reveal.
Exactly.
We're gonna explore those things that we don't want to reveal, and then also explore the reasons why we may not want to reveal them and how they were created in us, how I created them inside of myself. So you see this image, and it's basically when we speak of turning ourselves inside out, there's different parts. People exist in different dimensions of experience. Some people experience the physical body, and so what they can see when one says turn yourself inside out, what they see is the inside of the body, the organs, right? They see the structure of the body being turned inside out. It's no longer the skin, the outer skin layers that you see, but it's everything inside: the heart, the organs, the skeleton, the blood, the muscles, the brain. And then others may be so spiritually bound that they're just feeling and experiencing the sensations of what we call the spiritual dimension of ourselves. But very few of us are actually operating in this state of consciousness called the integrated self, where we're taking both the spiritual component and the physical component, and we're working with them flawlessly and fluidly. So what does it take to go into that space? And then when you're in that integrated self, when I say I'm going inside out, what do you actually notice? What do you see? What are the different components? What are those different aspects of me? So what we're going to work on is how to optimize optimizing the experience of being human. Being human basically is the integration. It's the integration of what we call, this is the body. And then that stuff that's invisible that we have some language for, but we haven't quite yet figured out how to connect with it. So we're gonna see how we can integrate this so that we can become integrated beings. And then also learn about those parts of us that we haven't yet learned to use properly or maximize on them, so that the experience in this human experience becomes optimal. So this workshop is about optimizing the human experience, bringing all the components that I am, integrating them, learning about them, dissecting them, learning some of the mechanics of them, so that we can then better integrate them, better utilize them, and understand from not just thinking or imagining, but putting them into experience so they become tangible. What we're going to be working to do is, when we are experiencing life, the majority of us remain in this sphere where the outer world, these spheres of external influence, are actually taking us over. This moment in time is a really interesting space for a lot of us. How many of you are feeling anything like not certain? Is everybody feeling very concrete and certain these days?
Not at all.
And what's causing that for you?
The global pandemic, and specifically in our country, the unrest of our country and what's been going on for a long time, but how certain things came to a head last week, and anxious about what's going to happen coming up. Like, can things get better?
Yeah. And where do you get most of this information from?
I do watch some, news shows, and then a lot of it is people discussing it with me, having conversations with others, and sometimes it builds on each other's worries. So I'm not saying it's necessarily positive, but sort of a sharing of different bits and pieces of information that people get.
Yeah, so a lot of the information is gathered by conversations we have with others, the other world,
Right.
and then from also sources like the news.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Is there confusion in your life? What is influencing? What outside information? Because this is all about information frequencies. What information is actually causing you distress? Any form of distress or questioning or uncertainty, fear, confusion. Anyone? Or you can also say something that is causing you absolute bliss, the opposite, right? It doesn't have to be something that's causing you something that weakens you, but it could be something that actually positively influences you. So it's not limited to just negative influence. It's just any type of influence. And where does it come from? Anyone? Where do you get your information from?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I by accident muted you. Where is he now?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone?
I don't listen to a lot of news. I try to not, and don't bring a lot of negative influence on myself, and thinking about the God and praying and thinking everything it will be great, and try to meditate and send the good wishes to everybody, all the countries.
Yeah. Right now we're in a place where the
Calm,
Go
and
ahead.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
This way, I am so calm and I'm not worried.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it right now it's a very interesting time because we're really impacted by everything that's happening outside of us because it seems to be overwhelming. It's very uncertain. And so what we're trying to do is figure out ways of stopping the effects of that external influence, stopping the noise of the external world. So we become either more isolated than we already are. We stop talking to each other, right? So there's all kinds of things that we do to protect ourselves, and most of it leads to some kind of isolation where we break away from the friends, we break away from having more conversations about people sharing their worries, their distress, because it's just too much going on at the moment. And all of it is compounded because we have so much information inside of us and it begins to affect us. So what we're doing is we are allowing everything that's coming from the outside, and we're not even conscious a lot of times of how is it that I'm taking it in. And what happens each time an event occurs outside of us, something as simple as, a very loud driver who's screaming because all of a sudden the movement of the cars has stopped and he needs to get somewhere. And then how does that come into me, right? How does that affect me? How does it create inside of me? We're not conscious of those things but we at the same time that we're not conscious of it, these things are molding the experience that we're having. So a lot of times an outside event would trigger memories that are inside of us, trigger ideas about the self, things that you identify. They have through your time here in this world, you've become familiar with this sense of being screamed at, perhaps, not listened to. So you begin to build these stories within you and you store them away. And you give your power to that outer influence, that person that's screaming, you give your power away. You're no longer conscious of who and what you are doing or being. So you become very reactionary. So you react to the outer world. And then you begin to, because of the impact the outer world is having, you begin to take action. And these actions can be a way of thinking, a way of feeling, a way of doing. And then you keep repeating them through time, they become a habit. And these habits, without you even realizing, begin to run your entire personality. And when that happens, they become part of your belief system. So now you're living by these ideas, these stories that you created in response to the outer world, and you store them away. And they basically, what they're doing is they're governing your moments, they're governing the way you react or respond to your life, to the moments that are passing by. Because you have so much stored away. Has anybody experienced that? That something outside, let's say your boss someday is having a tough day and somehow finds that the only way they can fix their own situation is by communicating with you in a certain way. Has anybody had that happen? And then how does that make you feel? What comes up in your brain when that happens? Anyone? Nobody's been in front of somebody who's screaming at them, saying things that are not so nice, or just in front of somebody who is speaking their idea, but that idea doesn't agree with how you see the world. And how does that make you feel? What's your reaction? What kind of things come up inside of you? What imagery comes up inside of your mind?
Hi, this is Sanjit from Santi.
Om Shanti.
Brother, after a lot of practice, I personally experience in my office work and also in some personal life, when somebody scream or try to make things something different that I don't like or not the right way, I usually put myself as a, like, see as a role that he's not yelling on me, it's my role. So then I try to differentiate. That's how I try to come out inside out to make it easy. So
Yeah.
this is my experience. Yeah. So if I'm in the office, if you scream that, oh, this is not the way to do, and you always do like this, it is too much. Kind of like, so then I stop myself. I say, okay, it's not me. I am the being, but it's my role. So let me see it differently. So this is how I used to manage and see myself at that place.
And does that work?
Yeah.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Does that work with all aspects of your life? Does that work also the same in your family? With your family?
In family also, I try my best, as but sometimes after the matter, when I react and then I realize that had happened, but that is not completely in my sanskar or belief system. So on that, I'm still working on that. But yes, that is not that easy when it's in the personal space.
Yeah.
But that is again to work more on that.
How about if I was to change the picture of the guy on the car and I was and I was to put Trump's picture there? What would be your reaction? Anyone? Remember, this exercise is for us to be authentic, honest, and whatever's there is okay. Because that's what we're working through to redirect, reconstruct, so that it becomes much beneficial. So we need to be with whatever's there inside of us. So if I was to put the picture of Trump there, what would happen? Anything?
The frustration and feel like it's not a normal human behavior, the way he's acting.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Very frustrating. Yeah, so we allow things from the exterior, whether it's a person, whether it's a person's character, whether it's a person's words, events, even the weather sometimes causes upon us in ways that brings us out of ourselves. But everything is creating a story inside of me. I am creating a story, whether I'm conscious of it or not conscious of it. It's happening. I'm storing things away in such a way that sometimes takes away my power. So this workshop is about taking the spheres of internal influence and increasing the power, my connection to them. So I am increasing the power of my spiritual nature, but also understanding. So this is an exercise of accruing, of gaining knowledge, so that you can use that knowledge to actually create strength in your practice, everyday practice, in the way you're thinking, the way you're feeling, the way you're being, and that it's coming from a place of choice, not just automatic consequence of whatever comes to me from the outside world. But I'm actually creating choices based on who I choose to be in that particular moment. And I'm focusing and connecting to my original sense of self. Right? So not the stuff that I learned, not the stuff that I was told I am, not the stuff that I was told I'm supposed to be, this and that, but it's the stuff that as I am growing and I'm becoming connected with myself, I begin to choose to become this and be this by choice, not because it was given to me either through my culture, my family, my education, none of those things. I'm letting go of those things. And I'm shifting. So when we say inside out, and the workshop in terms of taking the exercise is to process, is learning to process life from what's inside of me that's real, authentic, and true. So we're looking at what's inside of me, what is part of me that is constant. That when I connect to it, it's not going to shift according to what's happening outside, but it's going to be constant. There's going to be a sense of reliability, of specific structure. And that specific structure has specific also tools that I can use in order to create. So as I am connecting to everything that is real within inside of me, and I'm also making a choice to connect to it and to work with it, then I begin to work and I begin to respond to the outer world. So I remain connected to those things that are in my control. Most of the time, as we noticed before, we are giving our power away to something that's out of our control. Somebody else's words, somebody else's personality, somebody else's position, the weather, death, illness, a virus, the news, a politician, economics of the world. So we're constantly giving our power away. And what we're going to be attempting to do here is learn techniques that actually bring me back to a space of working out of what's in my control and out of the stuff that's real inside of me that will create stability and the tools that I naturally have in order to create that space and experience. So it's very practical and simple. So what you see here is this image is that it's just a very simple turnaround as our friend pointed out. It's the shift of perception that helps me maintain a certain sense of stability as to who I am. By recognizing who I am, I can then recognize the other. And that stability is referred to as pure vision. When I can see myself in my purest form, I can then have the capacity to look out and see things in their purest form as well, and not be distracted by the action, the word, the feelings that they're expressing. But I see them in this purest form, and I'm able to create with them, to collaborate with them, but also I am able to give to them something to help stabilize their position when they're in distress. So it changes the dynamics of who I am and what I'm capable of doing in any given moment. So that's why it's important for us to learn what is inside of us and how can we turn the process of how we live coming from that inside and bringing it out, sharing it without fear. Really being so strong within that space that we become fearless, that there's nothing to hide, because we are willing to clean up that stuff that needs to be let go. And that's what this is about. Letting go of the waste so that we can purely work inside out without any hesitation and create stability. And one of the things that is helpful is meditation, but the meditation that I speak of is very different from most meditations. It's not the kind of meditation where you go into the space where you need to have a certain scent or certain sounds or a certain position in terms of the way you sit, but this is a meditation where you can be moving, you can be cooking, you can be walking, you can be running, you can play music, you can be dancing, you can do everything that you normally do in your everyday life, because meditation is also a form of consciousness. I enter a consciousness of myself, an understanding of myself, and from that consciousness, I create a certain energy within me, a certain connection. So it's a consciousness that doesn't go into the nothingness or the everythingness of this oneness that many people speak of. We are one. Well, this meditation takes me into that space of I, the individual being. I, the individual being, I am causing myself to blossom, to open up. Meditation opens me up so that I can see what is hidden inside of me. So one of the disciplines that's created through this meditation form is the meditation of disciplining the mind. My mind. How many of you think that you have conquered your mind, that you're mastering your mind? Anyone? Your thinking is the way you choose. You never feel confused. You always are certain. Any of you are in that state?
No.
And what are some of the things that causes you to not be in that state? What comes up in your mind?
Any waste thought, maybe past or something which is happening in day to day. So as being conscious, we stop. Okay, it's not. It's the best and waste and not stop. So and do the meditate and connect self with supreme and see the real self. That helps, but it is not natural yet. So that's how I said it's not yet.
Yeah, it's not yet. It's interesting, right? So what we're choosing to is to create that space so that it is now, so that we can call upon that space whenever we require it. So in a second, I can enter that state of consciousness of myself, that consciousness of being the one who masters the mind, who is the master of the mind, who tells the mind what kind of thoughts to create and the quality of those thoughts. I am in that consciousness where whatever doesn't serve me, whatever does not align with my true self, the one I'm choosing to be, then I let it go as waste. I don't hold it within me because it's just weight. So meditation helps me to create a discipline where I connect to my mind as the one who is using that instrument to create thoughts. So they become my thoughts. I, the spiritual being, am creating thoughts through the use of this brain, right? I am using,
Yes.
yeah. So the meditation connects you to that process, that spiritual process. It heals your relationship and it allows you to recognize. So what happens in this form of meditation is as I go into my meditative state, the things in the screen of my mind, what comes up is those things that are troubling me. And those are usually the things that distract me from going deeply inward and fully connecting with my original self and also going into a spiritual state of connection. So in the screen of my mind, I see those things that need to be cleaned up. So instead of just seeing them and washing them away, what I do is I see them and I confront, I face them one by one, and I begin to heal them. So this is a process that we will learn to do by understanding the mechanics of what it is that I am as a spiritual being. So meditation, I do not go into the nothingness or into the oneness of everything, but I go into the oneness of myself. I go into the experience of who I am in its purest form. And I begin to create a mastery of, I begin to master the mind. And I begin to master through meditation those memories that keep coming up, those things that keep coming up into my consciousness, which distract me from being within my power, within my stability, within my openness, within my purity, within my unlimitedness, within my clarity. So I am releasing that which keeps me separate from who I am, because I'm naturally pure, I'm naturally connected, I'm naturally in balance. So meditation helps me attain a connection with my true self, my purest self. So that's the kind of meditation that we're talking about. It's not one where it's filled with ritual, but it's a simple mechanics of going into a particular consciousness. And that consciousness requires that we understand the anatomy of what we call the soul. And the soul is very simple. It's an eternal, pure point of spiritual energy. Does everybody understand or have a relationship to the idea of soul? And are they okay with me speaking about this?
I have questions, brother, on this. I do understand now all this, soul, body, and all the components. When we say like I, the true self, I, the soul, or the consciousness. On the consciousness, how I can understand what is consciousness. I can understand. I can see myself being conscious. I can practically understand or feel that I, the consciousness, at the moment, I can control or talk to my mind and see my intellect and how the impression works. But the consciousness, how you can define it, or how we can meditate, that help us more practical to understand.
Yeah, consciousness. So who is the one who's in meditation? Who is the one who just entered meditation? Anyone? When we enter meditation, who's entering into meditation? What's entering into meditation?
Conscious mind.
Conscious mind. Okay. Anyone else? Who and what is entering meditation? When I'm sitting, no matter what your technique is or method, when I sit into meditation, or where I go in, choose to enter a meditative state, who's entering and what's entering?
The soul,
Individual soul.
My thoughts,
Oh.
my emotions.
Yeah.
the soul,
Okay.
The soul to connect it to the superior
Yeah.
soul and get the energy.
Yeah. When we enter meditation, all of everything that I am, including the body, must enter with me. Otherwise, I'm going to be distracted. Right? So I, the soul, am the one who's driving the process, but the body, I must create cooperation from the body so that the body will sit still and not be distracted. So I have to create a relationship, I have to create a relationship with the body and the senses. So the physical aspect must be in cooperation with the spiritual. And the only way for that to happen is for the spiritual, the one that runs the show, is for it to be aware of itself and to understand its components. That's what self-realization means. Self-realization, I realize who I am as a spiritual being in context of this physical world. So self-realization is to realize who you are in the context of this journey called the human experience, and come to the realization that you are in a physical body, but you're a spiritual being. So the spiritual aspect of myself, I, the soul, or I, the energy, the pure energy, the spiritual energy, I am creating experience. And all of this together is consciousness. So I, the one who enters, create an environment, a space of experience, and all that is consciousness. That is the consciousness that goes with me from this to the next life and stays with me for eternity. So what I want to get to here is that there is a mechanics of how the soul works, and it's important for us to understand the mechanics and break it down so that we can best utilize and form, create with it. So the anatomy of the soul, it has a conscious mind, and that conscious mind is responsible for the thinking, the thoughts, because the thought creates an emotion, and then it creates a desire, creates the sense of wanting something to occur, right? From that thought. So the thought, and then it has an aspect of itself called the intellect, which judges, discerns, and helps you make decisions. Is it easy to make decisions today?
No.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Yes,
Yes. Is it always easy to make decisions in all aspects of your life?
definitely yes.
Definitely yes. You're in a very good spot. Now, does anybody experience the subconscious mind and the way it works? It's the subconscious mind is the holder. It's kind of like the hard drive of the soul. It's where everything, all impressions and memories are stored. Are any of you, I'm sorry, speak louder, please.
Subconscious mind is the one who makes all the decision, 95, 97%.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. How many of you are struggling with a memory or something from the past that is interfering with either a relationship with yourself, a relationship with someone else, a relationship with a space, a relationship with a time, creating struggles with your feelings and your ability to move forward? Anyone? You all have
Not
clear,
me.
huh?
Not me at all.
Up you. Anyone else?
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah.
All of the above. Yes.
All of the above. It's exactly that. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the most important thing that we need to understand and that we need to create collaboration, cooperation from, and that's the mind, the conscious mind, the creator of thoughts. Okay, it's very important that we understand how thoughts operate because they're the seed for everything that occurs in our lives. So it's important how the thoughts are being created. The words that we use in those thoughts are very important. So keeping that in mind, the words that I use in my thinking need to be carefully chosen, consciously, with awareness and care, because they're the seeds of what is occurring in my life. So by making friends with your conscious mind and training it to create the right type of thoughts, what you're doing is you're creating peace of mind. How do I do that? I have to understand the process. So a thought turns into a feeling, and then that feeling turns into an action. Then that action turns into a memory, impression, instinct, or habit, because everything that I do, everything that I create gets stored away. Where does it get stored away? In the subconscious mind. So there's a cycle of events that's occurring. And when you understand the cycle of events, you can become responsible for what you're creating. And then you can also use it wisely, use it to your advantage, use it for your nurturing and your empowerment. So paying attention to What is the quality of my thoughts? So I, as the creator, I, the spiritual being who's creating with the conscious mind, one of the most important things to understand and to become aware and to take time, this is important. I take the time to see what's there, what's inside of me at this particular moment. So I'm not carelessly creating, I'm not carelessly allowing the mind to just randomly create thoughts. I am now taking mastery of this process, and I am also being responsible with this process. So the first step I need to do is my intention clean. Is my intention in these thoughts that I'm creating clean? And one of the things that you can look for to see if it is clean is look at the choice of words that are helping you create thoughts. Look at the imagery. Look at what's influencing that imagery. What is influencing that thought? Is it just here I am present in this particular moment, looking at what's in front of me and only acting from that? Or are there memories, events from my past? Are they acting? Are they influencing the quality of my thinking? Am I being lost? Am I becoming lost in time? Or am I staying present and aware of exactly what's in front of me and only acting out of that? So it's very important. What is the intention? Is my intention clean in this moment? So before you even start to that process of thinking, anchor yourself. Be in that awareness. I, the conscious being, whose mind this is, I choose to create. I choose to create with intention, a pure intention. So be in that space. Put yourself in that space of I, the creator, am intentionally creating thoughts. Understand that as the creator of these thoughts, right, you're responsible for those thoughts. So what I think, how I think, and the quality of my thinking is my responsibility. So is the cause and effect. So what I create with this thinking, okay, and the feelings I create within inside of me and outside of others is a cause and effect that I am taking responsibility for. And also to be engaged with the fact that at any time that you see, that you recognize through your conscious being that you have gone the wrong way, understand that you have the power. No one else has the power, but you have the power. You hold the power to change those thoughts. And for some of us, because of our either mental, physical, emotional condition, we may be at different levels of capacity. But understand this, with practice and determination, you can get to the point where every thought you create, you can own it with a smile. Because all it takes is practice for you to practice, practice, practice. Practice how to create thoughts. What kind of thoughts am I creating? So instead of watching television or reading a book, take time to actually practice what we call churning, creating beautiful thoughts. So the activity literally is for you to be in action, but really creating beautiful thoughts. It's like creating poetry in the mind. Think of people around you, not just those that you love, but those that do not make you comfortable, and start creating. Start to force yourself to look at their beautiful qualities and start to create thoughts about their power, their beauty. Create a thought process that actually creates stability in yourself by actually create good image, good possibility for others. So that's how the mind works. You train it to think, you train it to feel, and you train it to act a certain way. It doesn't happen randomly. And it's not just an action that happens because of exterior influences, something that is within your control. So I have the power to change my thoughts. And for those who are familiar with karma, I am creating my karma with my thoughts. For my thoughts are the seeds for the feeling, and those feelings are the seeds for those actions, and those actions are the seeds for whatever I create with myself and others. So it's the cause and effect. The karma that I create is based on my thinking. So pay attention. Know your intention. And a good way of knowing whether thoughts are powerful and whether they're engaging possibility and creating strength and resilience is just look at how it makes you feel. Does this thought cause power within me? Or do I feel weak? Do I feel distress? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel worry? So take time to take a look and see, recognize what's happening. And whenever necessary, know that you have the power to change it. Does anybody really believe that statement in the bottom? The quality and the speed of your thinking is a choice. Anyone?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes? No one disagrees with that?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, you agree with it, but does anybody disagree?
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that we are creating thought. We are creator of everything. But in a real sense, if you look, if your mind is conscious 24/7, you're not creating anything. All you're doing is extracting things and make decision based on what you know, exactly the way things are, not with all five senses though.
Yeah, that's the point that we want to get to, because actually you do go outside of the just creating thoughts mechanically, where the mind is just randomly creating. What we experience today, most people, is that sense of random thinking. So you do, by actually going into meditation and actually training your mind to cooperate and be aligned with your state of being. So if you're at peace with yourself, if you created that sense of peace with self, the mind relaxes. Actually, what's actually happening is that through
Right.
your own through the creation of experiences that are stable for you, stabilizing, and they're also creating a sense of wholeness, sense of peace. But
Yeah,
it
but you mentioned about the experiences. There is no such thing like experiences because you are it. You are a powerful soul. You are a peaceful soul.
Mhm.
You are knower and seer that you are. There is nothing to define. The
Yeah,
experience comes when you're getting away from your home. That is all seven quality of soul.
yeah. So
And you're not recognizing it.
I'll ask you a different question. Did you start out this way, or did you get to this place of thinking? When you
Not
first
really.
started on your path,
Uh-huh.
were you the same as you are now?
Yes.
You were. Well,
Mhm.
you're a very lucky being, because a lot of times souls get distracted by their life experiences and they have no connection to this pure self, and they have no connection to their capacity, right? So
Yeah, that depends on your past performance, right? Past karma.
right, exactly. And because of that, not everybody is at the same level. So some souls need to build from where they are, and they
Right.
need to start to practice and remember. And by that, and by doing this sense of practicing, they begin to connect to that sense of power. Then it becomes natural.
Correct.
Right.
Santi,
Because you don't have to make no effort. You cannot meditate. Nobody can meditate. Nobody can teach meditate. Meditation happens as long as you are alert, awake, and conscious all the
Yeah.
time. I'm talking.
Yeah. So meditation also, just keep this in mind. Meditation can be it's a different experience for each individual soul. So what happens in that experience is very personal. And so there's not one experiences that is a blanket statement for everyone. Every
Mhm.
single individual is so unique that each of these experiences is according to their capacity. It's
Mhm.
according to their own state of consciousness,
Right.
and also according to their role. So let's keep
Correct.
that in mind.
Santi,
Yes.
when you're saying, so the quality and the speed of your thinking is a choice, and you said, does everybody believe that?
Yeah.
I would say I'm at a point more what you discussed earlier, and I have a example that just happened this morning, which is my mother called me to say my uncle, who I'm very close with, and his wife both got diagnosed with COVID. So if maybe I had more practice, I would have had a different thought. But what happened was I immediately had a reaction of, panic. Then I had to sit with it. So the quality and speed of my thinking, I wasn't making a choice in that moment. I just had like the gut reaction. But then I thought more about it and trying to, okay, this is this, and this is what's happening, and calm down, and then start thinking in different ways. So I am not practiced enough to say, yes, the quality and speed of my thinking is a choice in every moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's something to work toward versus having the first reaction, which is not always the best reaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's also what I'm speaking, is that it takes practice. It takes
Yeah.
to consciously say, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to be working through this process. And by doing so, the more you put into the practice, into the doing of it, it becomes natural. And as it becomes natural, you will find yourself naturally peaceful,
Yeah, that's
naturally
a goal.
operating. Yeah, naturally operating at a certain speed, and your brain, your mind, your consciousness, your conscious mind will actually be producing thoughts that are at slower speeds. It will
Yeah,
slow down. Sometimes from a personal perspective, I often say, I rarely hear myself thinking, because usually I feel like there's nothing there. Unless I choose to become conscious of it, I don't hear the process of thinking. It doesn't distract my attention. So it's gone to the point where my mind, and only at times where it does become distracting, is when there is something that is disturbing in my immediate moment,
Mhm.
which is calling me to fix it. So I know that I something needs fixing is when it keeps jumping into my consciousness while I'm meditating, or even through the moments it comes up, and then I look at it, and I use this process of awareness. So the first process is, what is my thinking about it showing me? So the thoughts that I've naturally created about this particular event, what is it actually creating within me? Is it creating strength? Is it creating questions? What kind of questions? So I look at it, and it resolves based on spiritual knowledge, right? So
Right.
the beautiful thing is that by actually gaining spiritual knowledge, you have a foundation to go to refer to, that actually helps you fix things in your life.
And you're saying that much of this comes through the practice of meditation?
Meditation is the first, so you need knowledge of who you are and knowledge of spiritual concepts that actually will create this relationship with your original self.
Mm.
Once you have that knowledge, you then go enter into meditation so that you can then churn it and create relationships with these aspects of yourself, the conscious mind being the first. So what kind of thoughts am I creating? What are the quality of the thoughts that I'm creating? That's the first step. So that by shifting the thinking, you're actually shifting not only the awareness, but you're shifting the feelings, you're shifting the actions, and you're shifting the cause and effect, thus your karma. Your relationships will shift, right? So the first thing that we need to shift is our thinking. How do I think of myself? Because a lot of the damage that has occurred through our lifespan happens, in this period, and usually at childhood a lot of times, where there are certain stories that we've created about my identity, who I am. I don't know if any of you have heard the hurt child from psychology. The child that is hurt because of something that happened at a young age, and you carry that hurt child with you your life until you actually create a new relationship with that hurt child within you. And that image of you being a hurt child actually influences not only your thinking, your feelings, and your actions, but it remains with you until you decide to deal with it. So
Yeah.
the first step is the thinking. I need to change my thinking. And that's part of the process of the soul. So the soul has a conscious mind, and that conscious mind is responsible for producing thoughts. So I, in the awareness that I'm the one who's producing these thoughts, I shift the thoughts in order to make them powerful, to make them nurturing, to make them resilient, but grounded in my spiritual knowledge of myself and my understanding of everything around me through spiritual concept. So the next step, the next aspect of the soul is the subconscious mind, which is, it's kind of like the hard drive where everything is stored inside of your consciousness. I collectively, in these spheres of action, am consciousness, right? And in that consciousness is all memories, impressions, habits, and instincts that are stored. So everything that I've created, every action that I've taken, every feeling and every action is part of that. And the belief systems, the habits I create are all stored there, right? So I hold everything that I say that I am based on my experience. My actions that I've taken indicate who I am, right? So I'm coming from the space of being influenced from everything that I've created, as opposed to being influenced from just who I am. So it's memories define me, impressions define me, habits define me, instincts define me, as opposed to I define myself as a spiritual being who is peaceful, right? Unlimited, eternal. So there's aspects of how we need to store these things that also comes into play. So I create worlds. What does that mean to you? I create worlds. And in terms of keeping in memories, so memories are stored away, and literally when they're recalled, they take you back in time. The image of that time comes very vividly into your mind, and that in itself is a world. So impressions, all these worlds, and I say worlds is because I operate out of this imagery that I've created about who I am. And then there's many images of who I am based on the groups that I belong to, my gender, my culture, all these different worlds. There's so many different worlds inside of me that I created about me that I have to bring them all together into some kind of sense of meaning that actually does not confuse me, and it creates stability. Again, so I have to make sense of what I'm holding inside of me in terms of memories, impressions, habits, and instincts. I have to, instead of having many worlds, I have to create one world that defines me as I wish to be defined. So what is the quality?
Actually, sorry, I wanted to say, I'm not sure if this is related, but there was a question about how certain habits come about, specifically in relation to procrastination and laziness.
Well, it's procrastination and laziness is it's a response to lack of self-respect. So you're not sitting in your seat of self-respect. It means that you don't hold yourself in respect to the level where you're saying, I am worth doing this because I know it's bringing value, right? I'm not, also it's a part of saying, not having enough trust in the self. But in terms of how the habit is created is quite simple. Every single time I come up to the same lesson, that the lesson presents itself in my life, I keep repeating the same habit of laziness. And especially right now, in this particular time, where everything is becoming a sense of instantaneous gratification. At a push of a button, I have a meal. At a push of a button, I have clothes. At a push of a button. So the sense of getting your hands dirty, feeling the sweat that is created by actually doing manual work, even just the simplest sundries like cleaning your home. Now you have some people have robots in their house that are cleaning up their floors. So this sense of laziness, or the sense of the lack of capacity building that is part of this social construct at the moment, we have to actually become aware of it, because it's actually creating a situation where our thinking process is being diminished. And also the experience, the opportunity to experience ourselves is diminishing. So before, when things were not as a push of a button, people used to make their own clothes. And I'm sure people still are doing it, but the majority of people are creating life at a push of a button. Even now, with this sense of, if I'm writing something, the autocorrect is not only correcting my language, but also my syntax, the way the phrases are being produced. So all these things are not creating capacity within me. They're creating a sense of laziness, and it's weakening my natural capacities to think, to process, to investigate, to be creative, to use my instinct. Does that make sense?
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
What you said is because of your laziness, is because of you not respecting yourself. You're not respecting the moment. But at the same time, if you look on the positive, what you said is mostly all negative. But the technology advancement is such that you can, right now, you can use it for your own conscious mind. You can be more conscious now. I think it's a blessing that we have a COVID. Don't take me wrong. That way you shaken up, waken up, and more conscious than before. And you're alert and awake with all 7 quality of your soul now, better, faster than before.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying that, because I never actually even mentioned anything with COVID. So
Basically the technology you mentioned, that everything is pushing a button.
Yeah, but
because everything is closed outside, so you just push the button.
It actually has nothing to do with COVID. It's It's an experience that actually it's been going on for a while. So it's a conditioning that is before COVID, and now through COVID, it's become much more apparent. So it's not a new phenomena. This push
Right.
button, yeah.
But
So,
pushing the button is not a new phenomena either. All this technology is nothing new. It existed millions and billions, trillion years ago, same technology or better technology, I would say. Only thing we are just recognizing, learning, that's all it is. Because our mind, our past karma is holding back all self-knowledge and also the knowledge of the worldly thing also we don't have like we used to have.
yeah, I just want to remind you that everybody has a different experience.
Right,
And
okay.
at the moment, everybody's having a different experience. And so the question was just, how does one create the habit? So it's not a negative or positive response to the question. It's simply an observation of
Right.
how laziness is being created. And part of it is how we're using technology to make things easier. So before, even going to a store was a positive thing because you went out to pick up something, or you went out to pick up food that you would then come back home and create. So there's a sense of creativity. There's a sense of actually using your capacity in order to even create a meal. So there's
Correct.
all these things that are now not being given as much opportunity. And this is
Mhm.
not a response to this present situation. This has been
No,
going
no,
on
no.
for a long
I
time.
understand. Now, physical, mental, and spiritual awakening is happening faster now, because of the situation,
Yeah. Well,
because of the laziness, once you recognize,
yeah,
and it has nothing, I don't think it has to do anything with your own self-respect,
well, everything has to do with where you sit in self-respect. So how I sit in my self-respect will also create an experience as to how I deal with the world. So,
But, but then you're creating ego for yourself because you want self-respect, right? Why you need? You already have one. I
yeah.
mean, as an individual soul, okay? I'm not talking about you,
Yeah,
means you.
so we have many things that we're not aware of, and we have many things that also because we're not aware of, we're not
Mhm.
connected to, and we're not practicing. So that's all
Oh,
I'm
okay.
yeah.
No, I
So
understand that.
okay.
I'm sorry to disturb you.
No, it's no disturbance. It's just a process. So what is the quality of my relationship with these imprints? How do they create in me? And that's really important because it points out to what he was saying, and also other aspects of what I was relating to is these memories create a relationship with myself and create a relationship with people around me. And these memories, how you store them, will activate a certain experience. So really, when they do come up in the screen of your mind, to become aware of how this story is creating upon me, it becomes very important. How does this create in myself, in my sense of self? How does it create in terms of how I choose to relate with people, how I choose to trust, how I choose to love, how I choose to be? So that shifts according to the way these stories, these memories are stored. So paying attention to how am I storing this in the subconscious mind? And one of the things that we can do in order to actually be consciously create with this is, if I have a memory, if I have something that's what I call a haunting, it's haunting me, right? Like a scary story. It haunts my mind. It haunts my heart. It haunts me on a daily basis. So when something's haunting you, it's haunting you only for one reason. It's trying to teach you something. And because you may not feel ready for it, you just keep pushing it back into the back of your mind. But through meditation and through this practice, what happens is that you begin to build strength in order to face, to confront. And then you can create healing. So when you're willing and able to look at what is in your mind and confront it, see it for what it is, study it, see what it is, see what it's trying to tell you, and then look at how can you harmonize it. So healing, harmonizing your subconscious, what's stored away, how I stored away certain events in my life, certain relationships, actually is either hurting me, causing me pain and sorrow, or it makes me happy. And so for those things that actually weaken me, I can choose to create a new story. And this is part of a process that can be used in order to do so. So take total responsibility for your part in the creation. So a lot of times, those things that we store that are haunting us, we have created a relationship with that event or that person or those words or those feelings. We created a relationship where we are blaming, right? So they did this to me. I become the victim. So the first step is be responsible, not to look at what that other person did, but look at what I created. Look at what kind of words I used. Look at how I was creating in that moment and take responsibility. I created this moment with the other party. So what was my part in it? How did I see myself? What were the thoughts that I was creating? Was I defensive? Was I open? Was I loving? Was I angry? Look at what's there, just without judgment. Look and see exactly what it is. And then be responsible. Because the only way you can heal something is whenever you blame someone for whatever it is that's happening, what you're doing is you're giving your power away. So when you give your power away to someone, and you give your power away, it's basically you are giving your capacity to heal away, to reconstruct. You're not taking the sense that I, the creator, am creating this circumstance. I'm recreating the story. Not the facts of what happened, but the story I stored away. So I do stop blame, and I look at how I played, and I begin to take the steps. This is how I played my role. These are the steps that I need to take in order to fix what I created. One of the things also that creates a lot of problems in terms of the sense of these haunting memories is I had so much expectation either of my child, of my brother, of my mother, of my boss. So we create expectations of each other's. So the next step is stop, release all expectations I have about others. And the minute you do that, you're accepting that they are free to do as they can. Because at that point that you release the expectations, what you're also doing is you have stopped the sense of taking whatever they did, whatever they said, whatever they felt, whatever action they took personally. You thought that they were acting against you, but in fact, it was because of their day, because the stuff that was going inside their mind. So become clear. People act the way they act because of whatever's going inside of them, and it's not a personal action. And then the next step is to let go of the past moment, just the way it happened. This just the way you saw it happen, just the way it happened, and also the way you chose to create it up to this point. The story you created has been damaging you, creating sorrow, creating pain, creating obstacles in your relationship with yourself and others. So just let it go. It cannot be changed. It's in the past. It's finished. The next step, which happens naturally, because once you release the old story, what happens is you can very easily return to who you are, to that foundation of your natural virtues. I, the peaceful soul, look at this event and I grow from it. I benefit. So I look at the benefit of what it taught me, how it helped me grow. And then I rewrite the story in such a way that it reflects the benefit. It reflects the wisdom of my new understanding, of my new interpretation, that releases the blame, that releases the expectation, that releases the sense of they did it to me, and the understanding that it's past, it's finished, and I don't have to carry it away with me wherever I go. I can stop its influence. It's within my power. So now that I rewrite that story, I then, in that process of meditation, in that process of consciousness and relationship with it, it's stored away in that subconscious mind. And then it becomes a tool. It no longer becomes a haunting. It actually becomes a tool for you so that you can refer to it whenever necessary. And you say, the wisdom of this moment can be placed in this particular moment to create power, to increase my relationship, to expand understanding of myself and the other. So it becomes tools. They become tools as opposed to little prickly vines that they're cutting you, right? So they become flowers. So you're creating these memories. You're taking them from being these spiny vines into beautiful flowers that are going to create power. Let's put this into practical terms. So does anybody have something that they would like to share in terms of something they feel is haunting them? Anyone? Something that's haunting me, that keeps coming up. It could be a worry. It could be something that creates anxiety in you, something that creates confusion, something where you don't know the answer. Anyone?
I have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I am 40 years of age, and the way I grew up is like I always obeyed my parents and teachers. So whatever they said, I did. And around in 21 years of age, I got married. And I did whatever my in-laws told me or whatever my husband told me. And as soon as I turned 40, I start realizing that in past 40 years, I only lived for others. And now I have too much to catch up because I have nothing for myself. So it seems like most of the life is waste. So after 40th birthday, my speed is kind of little higher because I'm trying to catch up things like I need to make home for myself, for my kids. So this is the thought keep coming. Even when I rest on Sundays, I feel like, oh, why I'm resting? Because I have already wasted past 40 years. So I don't know if it's a good feeling or no. but there is a hollow or some kind of bad feelings, like I have been a stupid in my past 40 years. So I don't know if I'm thinking right or wrong, but I'm just trying to catch up, and this thinking is keep coming because now I feel like my energy is little low too.
Yeah. So we're
So
going to go through.
before,
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that wonderful example, and we're gonna just go through this process here that I broke down here. So first of all, are you willing to take responsibility in your part? Meaning,
yes,
yes. So the first step is I'm willing to take responsibility for my part in it. So who allowed this event to happen the way it
I
happened?
I did.
Okay, so I take responsibility for choosing to allow things to be the way they were. Okay, that's the first
Ye-
step. I am
Yes,
responsible for allowing something to occur the way it did. Okay, so
yes.
and then the next part is there someone to blame for this?
Um, yes, it seems like I have been grew up in the sense that I need to listen my elders. So the being obeyed child or obeyed daughter-in-law or whoever I am today. So it's always a good idea. Like this is how in our culture we teach our children to obey whatever parent says
It's a
or
culture.
whatever your teacher says.
It's a cultural thing, right? So
Yes,
I've been blaming the way I grew up, right? So it's a cultural thing. So there's no one to blame, right? It is so so now you have to release the blame. There's no one to blame because who's responsible? Who took responsibility for this just now?
I did.
I did. So I'm responsible for the things that happened, and there's no one to blame, right?
Yes,
Because
yes,
the culture was not there to make the decision for me, right? I
yes,
chose to use the culture as the way of thinking that produced this action,
yes,
right? So now I'm going to take responsibility. I choose to take responsibility that because of my understanding in that moment, that taught me, okay, that taught me that you do X, X, and X. So I am responsible because I understood it this way, and that's okay. We're gonna say that's okay. I understood it this way. It was the best of my understanding at that moment. I'm okay with that. And then what we're gonna say, people expect of me, right? So people expect you to what? To agree with you and to also have agreement with you, right? So the expectation is that you need to be a good person, right? So you had expectations of yourself for one,
yes.
right? So I'm going to release the expectations that I have to please everyone,
Okay.
right? And that I am going to choose to, instead of pleasing other people, I'm going to be authentic and real to what I think and what I feel, right? And who I am.
No, one thing I want to clear, whatever I did it with my true heart because at that time I felt like the thing I am doing, at that moment I felt I am doing the right thing.
Yeah,
But for
that's
the
that's exactly right. So because you had expectations of yourself to make sure that you are pleasing people, right? And so that led you to have a heart that said this is the right thing to do. And so all of a sudden you kept doing what was pleasing to everybody else, but not necessarily to yourself. And that created a hollow,
Hmm.
right? So now what we're seeing is that I'm responsible for everything that I've created. There's no one to blame because
Mhm.
I chose to do it this way because of my present understanding. Because I understood it this way, this was the best thing I can do. But now I'm releasing the expectation that I have of myself to please people, and I'm going to free myself from that expectation. I'm now liberated. I don't have to please people, but I can act in such a way that is authentic and real for me, And at the same time, that authenticity, I trust it will actually create benefit in my relationships. Right? So don't take so you're taking personally, right? You took this personally, that it was all about you personally having to do an action. You had to be this way in order to be culturally correct, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to release that idea that I have to follow this particular rule, okay, the way it was given to me, that I have the capacity, and I'm going to trust myself to look at that idea and actually rewrite it in such a way so that it becomes authentic and real for me. Okay, so it's no longer just a general idea that I took on as part of my living. It is something that I am looking at, and I'm making it so that it reflects what's real and true for me.
Yes.
Yeah. So you let go of the past. You now say, what happened and what has been happening cannot be changed. It's finished. So now, are you ready to let that go for good?
Yes.
It doesn't haunt.
Yes.
So through that understanding, you just let it go. And then you come back to the new learning that you have, which is the new learning that you have at the moment. Who are
Right now, I am more focused towards my children. For the worldly matter, I'm thinking like, okay, whatever I did was I did never hurt anybody, and then people don't hurt me too. But
yeah.
only the thing is, I'm feeling like as a mother, I have more responsibility towards my children.
So you're going back to the same process. You're now adopting a new belief that you have to please your children and you have to work for your children, right? And that's going to become
Yes.
the focus. That takes you
Oh,
away.
okay.
That takes you away from doing things the way that comes to be true for you and also real for you. So you have to refocus. So you see what's happening is that you've been given a lot of cultural information. You've been educated. You were told by your parents, you were told by school, you were told by the government, you were told by society that this is how you need to operate. You're a woman, you're this age, you have a family, this is who you are. And sometimes we're told who we're supposed to be, but that's not real necessarily, because we need to adjust those ideas so that they are real and true for us individually. It's actually a process of growing up, and it's called a process of individuation. And we'll go into it. That's actually going to come up. But the first step is that you look at the situation, you are releasing it because you're understanding that it's your creation and that there's no one to blame. You're putting it into a context about your new understanding. So if I told you, who are you outside of being a mother, outside of being, a woman, outside of being this culture, outside of all of that, who are you?
I am an individual soul.
That's right. And that individual soul has certain natures, right?
Yes.
So the focus of this is for you to come back into that space of I, the individual soul, have a certain foundation of being. And I'm not going to be afraid of operating from that foundation, because I know that that foundation is pure, and that by operating out of that, I will create harmonious relationships with everyone. And people, I will trust that people will accept me just the way I'm being. Right? So I'm not
Yes.
going to have fear of failure. I'm not going to have fear of not pleasing people, but I'm going to have absolute trust that I'm going to be true and authentic to what is natural for me in terms of my pure spiritual being.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So you're creating a new story, and you're also creating a new idea by which to function out of. So I, as you said, individual soul, am making choices that bring me harmony, stability, and peace of mind. I will be a peaceful being. I do not need somebody else's approval to be a peaceful being. I choose to be a peaceful being. I do
Yes.
not need to please somebody, right? By being a
Yes.
peaceful being, I'm just choosing to be a peaceful being.
Yes.
See where I'm coming from? And now what you're doing is you're going to write the story so I understand that through this moment, I chose to please others before actually being authentic and real for myself. Okay? I was distracted by my desire to please others, and I was distracted by the teachings that I had taken on through my lifetime. Now I'm going to use what I know, and I'm going to create a story where I and my choices, my spiritual choices, are enough. So I, the individual soul, operate out of my authentic self, my original self, my pure being, my peaceful being, my responsible being, my respectful being, my trusting being, right? And I create my relationships from that point. I don't need anyone's approval. I approve of this beautiful being that I am,
Yes.
right? So that's the
Yes.
story that now takes place from that haunting, and you can let go of that other stuff. So now what I encourage you to do, this was just us working through it, but I encourage you to go through meditation, look at what's there, and now turn the story around so it's in the context of you personally looking at it, and you personally put it into a context that actually gives you power and takes away any traces of negativity or sorrow or pain.
Okay. Makes sense.
So the next part is, so you have a conscious mind, and then you have the subconscious mind, and then now we get to the intellect. And the intellect is basically, it has the power to discern and decide. And that's where all these experiences, this is a great experience, the one we just had, where an outside influence, right? The cultural references, the gender references, the familial references, the generational references, they all were affecting me, and they created a belief system that I didn't quite know how to function out of. And because of it, I created decisions that were not necessarily so good for me. So what happens here in the intellect is that it accumulates all these different worlds that you created. All these different influences have a different world, and they call belief systems. And these ideas and these belief systems help the intellect say, this is right, this is wrong. So it looks at any given situation. And so if the belief system is representing something from outside of you and doesn't fully represent what is real for you, then there's going to be conflict. And that's what happens. So the intellect sometimes doesn't know what to do. It senses confusion. It senses pain. It creates a situation of pain. Because what I created a habit of doing is actually operating out of that outside influence, that external influence. And I worked out of that external influence as my identity, as my way of being, but it's not real, it's not true. Because who I am is something completely different. So in the intellect, we carry every belief system that we've ever created that actually determines my thinking process, it determines my feeling process, it determines my action process, it determines my relationships, it determines the way I see and relate to the world. So it's very, very important. And the intellect can be the cause of peace and stability, or it can also be the cause of confusion, pain, and sorrow, because it doesn't have a clear understanding of who you understand you are. So it has to go through a process of being cleaned up. And at that point, the belief systems that you grew up to that particular point where you begin to decide, this is who I am, not this is who I've been told that I'm supposed to be. And this is who I choose to be, not who I was told I need to be or behave. And this is who I choose to act in the world and to myself. This is my sense of self and the sense of how I choose to be in the world, as opposed to how everything outside of me told me I need to be. So that process, then you have to go through an individual process where you literally have to look at all those different worlds, all the different belief systems. And as you move through life, you begin to individually decide, this is true, this is not true for me. So whatever you need to release begins to be washed away. This is right, this is not right for me. I don't need to be that which they say I'm supposed to be, but this is what feels right for me as a soul, as a pure being. And this process that I just described, so first of all, we must understand how the soul works in terms of its different instruments. So the soul has these three components which help the process of creating reality and experience: a sense of thinking, sense of feeling, and sense of action. So that's the conscious mind creating thoughts, which then turn into feelings, which then turn into actions. Then the intellect that decides what's right, wrong, true, or false. And because through life we've collected a lot of different belief systems, we're carrying around this goulash, this mixed up bag of goods. And all of those are conditional. So they say, I am, if it's religion, then, it has a certain rules about how you speak, how you don't speak, who you can deal with, what kind of foods you eat, how you dress. If it's a relationship, this is how I need to behave in a relationship. This is how I think in a relationship. This is how I feel in a relationship. So these are different worlds that I'm carrying around. If it's at work, this is how I behave. And sometimes what happens at work doesn't really correlate to what happens at school, at home. And these things collide. They begin to collide. They create confusion because the intellect doesn't know what to do. So we go through this process called individuation process, the process of actually saying, I've gone through life, and it seems that certain things in my life are working and certain things are not. And that's because you're carrying this bag of accumulated belief systems, and you haven't yet consciously sat down to actually select what is right, what works for you, and what is true, what is false, what is right and what is wrong for you individually, an individual soul, indistinguishable from another. You, that individual being, who are you? That question arises at some point in your life. And when it does, it's calling you to decide who I am, what I am, what are the qualities that I will work out of, as opposed to what I am told I'm supposed to do, be, think, feel. So this individuating process can be somewhat of a confrontation with the self, and we put resistance towards it because we are attached to these habits. We're attached to these old ways. Because it's easier sometimes also to just stay within the routine. It feels more safe. But in spirituality, the greatest reward comes from the deepest work. And so in this process of individuation, you're being called to say, this is who I am. This is my spiritual being. This is what I represent in the world, in myself and in the world. And one of the things also that helps you understand these aspects of how do I discern something that I'm told and whether it feels right or not right. One of the things that I say to you is things that are real and don't have conditions are universal truths. And so when you apply them, no matter what the situation, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's you personally, internally, or externally with other relationships, whether it's your relationship with the world, it will be consistent. It will give you a consistent result. It will always bring peace, harmony, and stability. But when you work out of this conditional accumulated belief system, a lot of times confusion, distress, anxiety, uncertainty, worries arrive. So that's one very easy way of sort of being able to say, wow, if this doesn't empower me, if this is not creating power and resilience within me, I need to let it go. It's not universal. It excludes some people. It excludes my ability to be in harmony, to be peaceful with others. Is that what I want to create? More groups of agreement or more groups of truth for me, where everybody has the right to think and feel and say. You know, right now we're going through this whole, it's a revolution of thinking. It's one thinking against another. It's one politics against another. It's one reality against another. So there's a lot of battles going on in terms of just literally this world against another world that is part of a reality for different individuals. And the more we live in this conditional realities, the more broken we become. We've become fractals of a whole. So think about that. Do I want to continue to be breaking up not only myself, but also breaking up the communities around me? Is it possible for me to work out of this pure love, power, bliss, peace, from that universal spiritual sense of me? Is it possible for me to create this experience where all I'm carrying is pure love, bliss, peace? How many of you believe that that is possible? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Does anybody have any questions with any of this information?
Santi, can you see the chat?
I can't. Well, I can, I'm sure, but there's 20.
Brother Santi, there are two questions actually, if you would like me to read them.
Yes,
out
please
to you.
do. Yes, that would be very helpful.
Yeah,
honey.
that's what I was gonna say. They're on the.
Okay.
Yes.
So the first question is, how do you define virtue?
Virtue, it's one of virtue is natural to the soul. Also, it's universal. There's never an exception for its use. So it doesn't say, in order for me to be respectful towards you or it, I need certain conditions. It's just natural to be exercised no matter where or with whom. So one of the and values is something that is very much conditional, because that deals with the belief systems, the worlds, the different worlds. Different worlds have different belief systems. So a corporate belief system, a corporate culture has a certain belief system. A certain school has a certain belief system, the culture and belief systems and value systems in terms of Harvard versus, a small school, they're completely different. Their intentions are different. So, but the virtue is natural to the soul. It is the natural foundation of the qualities of the soul. Those things are always there. They don't need to be built up. They don't need to be created. You don't need to search out for them. Most people, if you look at the world, most people are looking out to try to find happiness in another person or in a relationship with another person. Most people are trying to find this sense of compassion, the sense of respect, the sense of all these virtues, the sense of love, the sense of power. When all of that actually exists already within you, it's the nature of your spiritual makeup. There's no need to look for it. It's already there. What we need to do is wake up to it. And that's why meditation becomes very important. Literally, naturally, through meditation process, this particular meditation process, and I'm sure through other forms, but this particular meditation process focuses on reconnecting you to that original experience of yourself.
So these are the original qualities of the soul.
That's right. So the original qualities of the soul is purity, love, bliss, power, and peace. And from that, every other virtue is born.
Okay, so these always remain same or it's changeable?
Every single virtue, everything that you can think of as a virtue is part of your nature.
So is it possible one soul has all of them?
All souls have all of them. Isn't
Oh,
that
wow.
amazing? Yeah, we're not educated in terms of what a soul is, nor the qualities of the souls, nor the different functions of the soul. So this workshop is about educating us for you to understand what you are, so that you can then use that knowledge to work through the process of your everyday moments, to practically put it into action. For example, you can then become pure in your thinking about yourself, pure in the thinking of others. You can become loving not only to yourself, but also at the same time towards others, right? So that always will remain. That is your foundation. That is one of the beauties of understanding the difference between who you are eternally and who you are conditionally. In this temporary moment, in this lifetime, you have been given lots of temporary ideas, beliefs from your culture, from books you read, from your education, from families, from your relationships. All of those things inform you, but they all have different worlds, different ways of functioning. And that's why sometimes life can be very confusing. So this is an invitation for you to work out directly from that core space of your original self. And from there, that's how stability, that's how peace of mind, that's how harmony actually gets manifested. Because the way you think, the way you feel, the way your actions get propelled into your moments changes. Because you're using this as your foundation for all of those thoughts. Your thoughts are becoming beautified with virtue. They're becoming colored. They're empowered with virtue. And then you're
Okay, I'm sorry. My question is that does this round always stay same or it's changeable? Like new things can add in or go out, or it always stays same like this diagram?
I'll give you.
Which
I'll ask you a different question. What were you thinking should go in?
I actually didn't get enough chance to see all. Like um, I was thinking of wisdom that's there.
Wisdom.
Yeah, it's there already. I don't know right now.
So this is my invitation to you. Have this image in your mind as you meditate, and then see if anything else, any other quality comes up. And if when it does, then you know it's there because it has come up. There's an understanding of it and there's a connection to it. So everything beautiful, everything naturally, spiritually empowering is a virtue.
Because I couldn't see strength and power.
Power is there
I,
right in the center.
oh, there is. And strength, that's the same thing. I think the power
Yeah.
and strength is the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then there's a set of questions. So essentially, it's why is spiritual power listed under conditional belief systems, and why is bliss as well?
Because even what I'm giving you right now is a belief system. So, and also what it's pointing towards is the fact that power, spiritual power is there because the information that you've been given, that you've been accumulating through life, includes everything from some things that are founded in the universal spiritual truth, and also in the foundation of you as a spiritual being, as I, the soul. And there's many other things that are actually around it. So that's what we're trying to get to, is to the point where we are only looking, where we only have in that bag of goods, where the only thing that is actually there is this sense of purity, love, power. And it doesn't mean that negative or obstacles do not occur. It just means that we have been building our capacity through transforming even memories. Remember how we did the memory transformation, where we took something that was disempowering or taking that wasn't being seen through our own eyes and experience as something that could empower and benefit us. And so by actually creating it, turning it around, by practicing the sense of understanding of who I am, I the soul, I'm creating thoughts. What kind of thoughts am I creating? Are they founded? Are they grounded in this sense of my nature, my natural qualities? And by choosing to do that, what happens is that I'm transforming everything that's negative or anything that's an obstacle. And I'm actually learning to transform obstacles into something positive and beneficial. I'm learning from them. I'm taking benefit. So that's why in the other image, there's a mixture of things, including some things that are inclusive of the nature of the soul, like spiritual power or love. So it's a mixture of things that can be rooted in the understanding of yourself and things that are just thrusted upon you in terms of belief systems that are from outside influences, like culture, your sense of gender. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, you can let us know, the one who asked those questions, if
next
it
question.
answers it. But there was also, and it's perhaps related to your answer just now, the other question was, and what is the difference between joy, which was listed under conditional, versus happiness, which was listed as truth?
Yeah. So again, it is related to the previous question, to the previous answer, because this bag, can you see the where I'm pointing?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. So all of
Yes,
this
yes.
includes everything. So it includes things that are this plus everything else that you've been told that you're supposed to be. Everything else that you've learned about, about how a particular gender is supposed to be, how you operate as a mother, as a son, as a daughter, how you supposed to be, operating in relationships, how you are as an executive, what kind of things that you do and you do not do. So all of this is a bag of mixed up goods of both good and stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. So this process of individuation actually creates this. So we're trying to get to this process where we've cleaned up that bag of goods that we're carrying around, and we're only carrying that which we've chosen through because we've experienced the benefits and we experience how it actually brings stability, happiness, right? Consistently. Because when you operate out of virtue, these qualities always bring positive outcomes. There's no exception to it. And it's only when one of these virtues is being employed into a particular event with the wrong intention. So it's like, if you look at peace, for example, if you take 0.001% out, if you add 0.001% of hatred into peace, you can no longer call it peace. It's already been tainted, right? So only in its pure form and the intention in which we utilize these qualities, it determines the purity of those qualities. So it's up to us to determine with intention how pure our creation will be. Next question.
That was it, and it looks like they were answered. Thank you.
So the question that I think that's most important for us to actually come to understand and also create a relationship with, because it isn't until we actually create these relationships with our thoughts and our worlds that we have inside of us. So we come to actually, instead of having 20 different worlds, we're coming to a singular world that we operate out of. I, the spiritual being, have spiritual qualities, and I think, I feel, and I act with these foundations. This is my foundation of thinking, this is my foundation of feeling, this is my foundation of doing. And because this happens, this becomes my nature again, right? This is natural for us because this is really who we are. And everything else was a distraction brought upon the outside world, the influences of the outside world. So we're now returning to what we originally are, and we're working out of that. And that's what inside out means. I am working out of my understanding of who I am originally and those qualities that I am built out of. And I have a certain structure that I function. So the soul has a structure. Now I understand the structure, how to be a mechanic of that structure so that I can get the best results out of my life. I'm optimizing my human experience by understanding both the physical component and the spiritual component. And also understanding how the external world influences my dynamic of thinking, feeling, and being. But the question is, do you believe, can you imagine this world that we are experiencing right here, right now, as a world of paradise? Anyone?
No.
What's the question?
Can you imagine, or can you see this world that we are living in as a possible paradise?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes. Sorry, understood the question wrong.
So the only way we get to this point,
No.
that we get to this point where we trust ourselves and that we trust who we originally are, is by connecting to that experience through meditation. So it's a technique of meditation, of connecting to the original self, of disciplining the mind so that the thinking becomes clean and clear and pure. So the mind becomes clean and clear and pure through meditation. And we release any of the waste. And what we're doing is also facing whatever shows up in this meditation, and we face it and we transform it into something useful so that we're no longer haunted by the past. So meditation is the tool for me to connect to myself and to return to my original self. And it's not a practice that requires ritual, music, a certain environment. It's a space of the inside. I am consciously entering internally to my internal world, and I am consciously working out of that which is inside of me. I, the soul, the pure being, whose foundation is virtue, and begin to work in the space of that's called this world. Right? And it builds capacity, it opens the mind. It also increases healing. So there's no reason for you to also be fearful of death, of illness, because there's certain understanding through spiritual knowledge that you gain from, and a new relation is born through that knowledge of who you are, your eternal self, that which cannot be touched by death. Right? And that's what meditation is doing. It's creating a connection and an experience of the eternal you beyond the body. And one of the things that also happens, which I won't go into too much, and this is just, fodder for the brain in terms of future contemplations that you may want, in terms of things to dive into, in terms of expansion of your understanding of what the soul is, but also the capacities of the soul that are created through a practical practice of meditation and knowledge. And one of the other tools of the soul, outside of just the conscious mind, intellect, and the subconscious mind, is the powers, the 8 powers of the soul, which allows you to engage with life in such a way that you remain in your pure form, you remain in your pure self, because you become more capable of dealing with all situations that you need to face in order for you to learn as a spiritual being, right? So no longer will you confront situations with fear, anxiety, but what happens is that you build spiritual resilience where you can face anything and put it into a context of spiritual understanding that it allows you to remain in your peace of mind and stability. So the act that allows these powers to emerge is just simple. Continue a practice, meditate, and allow those powers of the soul to naturally emerge. They're there, they're just sleeping. So for you to begin to practice to connect, it begins to emerge very naturally, very simple. So what I want to do with this particular part is I want to see how you've connected, but also how you remain in that space of comprehension. So can we take some of these concepts and actually put them into action? Because the idea is not to take this as just knowledge to store away, but actually they're practical points to activate in your everyday moments. So keep your spiritual instrument clean and pure. How do I keep my instrument clean and pure? So the first thing that we mentioned was give attention and care, right? Understand the intention in which I am standing here present in this moment. accurately choose how you process the moments in your life. So it's a choice. My experience of the moment is a choice I will create based on my own condition. The condition of my thinking, the condition of my feeling, the condition of my doing. There is no one to blame. I am responsible. Before I see with my eyes, I become aware of who I am. I, the peaceful, responsible being, spiritual being, I'm using these eyes to look into the world. I'm seeing what's in front of me. I'm seeing this event in front of me. So before I actually even see, I stabilize myself in my identity, spiritual identity, and also in the spiritual qualities of myself. So my eyes are coloring the event with peace. They're coloring the event with love. My listening is colored through my sense of tolerance, patience, and respect. The feelings that are created are peaceful and harmonious. Neither do I take things personally, nor do I blame. I see it from the nature of my spiritual understanding and my sense of self and my sense of other. So I take it in a beautiful way. So this is before the influence enters my mind. I must be stabilized in my own self and that foundation of who I am, so that when that influence enters, it enters in a beautiful way. It enters in a way that's going to empower me. So in that sense of processing these sense organs, my eyes, my ears, my mouth, my fingers, everything, all these senses, physical senses are going to work for me. They're going to feed me information in a beautiful way because I am connected to myself and my original foundation. And when it goes in and it starts to process, it's going to ignite thoughts. So it's going to bring form and meaning to it because I'm going to create an internal story about what's happening in front of me in such a way that I'm going to put spiritual knowledge into practice. This soul, if they're screaming at me, if they are out of themselves as the spiritual beings that I recognize them to be, and now they're lost in their own mind, I will create a story. I recognize you as a soul who is pure and being, but right now you've forgotten who you are and you're screaming. You're angry. I'm going to see just with that without taking it personally. And I'm going to see this beautiful story. And then I'm going to take it internally through my senses, through my knowledge that I have, through all the memories that I have. They will begin to ignite. So what inside of me can I actually give? So I'm going to choose to respond and not react to this particular moment with my internal understanding of what's happening in spiritual terms. And now I'm going to respond to you in such a way that represents who I am by choice. I choose to be tolerant. I choose to be respectful. I choose to be loving despite the outer influence. And then that experience brings out its cause and effect. And I will store it in such a way that it reminds me of my power. It reminds me of my understanding, spiritual understanding, and it's stored away as a piece of powerful tool, a tool for whenever it's ignited, whenever it's required. Not a haunting story, not a memory that brings me pain and sorrow. Okay, so I hope that that's understood in some ways. Do you have any questions?
In this output, you have intake, process, and output. There is a word called react.
Yes.
It doesn't sound right. React. Output should be responding to the
Well,
outward world.
because the reason I put react there is because I have to take into consideration all possibilities. Because
okay.
the soul needs to have it needs to be open-ended. So the soul needs to be in absolute self and an understanding of the self in order to be in response.
Right.
So the
all the possibility choice you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah. So the choice, there's a choice in every aspect, in every part of this process, there's the choice to make.
Right.
I choose to just allow things in, as opposed to I choose to focus myself, understand who I am, connect and anchor myself in the foundation of virtue before I even let things come in, right? So even from the first step, I make a choice as to who and how I'm playing the game. So every part of this process is an invitation for us to be practicing knowledge in a way that empowers and creates resilience and creates tools for us to then utilize in future days, right? Or if we are not conscious of who we are, they come in, they create a reaction from us, and most probably will be stored away as stories that haunt us, that create resentment, they create this sense of regret. So the process must be in the consciousness of I know who I am, I know my tools, I know the structure of my being, I know how to use it, I know how to apply my understanding, and I am grounded, anchored in my original virtues.
So
Simple.
it's conscious with the clarity you have completely.
That's right. So I must be pure and clean, just like it says. Make sure that the intention is pure and clean. Make sure that you take the time. Most people are rushing, and usually their biggest excuse is, I don't have time.
Right.
So here is the encouragement, it's the invitation to always take time to be in the right mind, to be in the right consciousness, to be in the right anchor, to be in the right understanding.
It's just like we said, do very fast, very slow.
Well,
with a
yeah.
clarity and a conscious mind.
That's right. And so the speed in which I can operate speeds up. So because of if I keep practicing this way, it's the same thing as a habit. It becomes my habit. It becomes it returns to being my nature. So
Right.
if a soul has forgotten who they are, they need to return to their nature. And the only way to return to their nature is by continuously practicing this nature.
Right.
And then it becomes natural again. So we are practicing for us to reconnect to our nature, our very easy nature. And that's what we're doing. It's so that it no longer becomes a burden or something difficult to do, but it's a consciousness that is constantly awake and alive. I
Right.
am a spiritual being with virtue. So it doesn't become a burden, doesn't become an obstacle. It's just become natural. You're naturally churning this. You're naturally being this. So does anybody have a question or would like to bring forth a situation that we can work through in this process just to make it real and alive?
So with this process, it ultimately becomes your sanskar.
Well, with this, exactly, this process becomes how I deal with the moment, how I deal with the moment, how I deal with my thinking, my intellect, and any memories that might be ignited, and how I deal with it in terms of making sure that my internal space is clean and clear in terms of my sense of identity, my sense of intention, and also, most importantly, that I'm grounded, that I'm anchored in the right place.
Right. So you can transform all your sanskar in such a way that you can burn all your karma. There is no positive, negative left. So there is no karma.
That's right. So all
So
you're
you get a moksha.
That's right. So all you're doing is you're being yourself naturally, spiritually beautiful. Right? So it becomes natural for you to take anything that's difficult, anything that's ugly, anything that's challenging, and to make it beautiful just by that, following that simple system.
Right. Because there is no such thing like ugly or beautiful. Everything is different modality of whatever you know or see or just watch the movie, you know.
Exactly. But I'm putting it in terms so that again, everybody's a different capacity and also a different experience.
Okay.
So
I'm
I need
sorry.
to make sure that everybody who, wherever they may be, whether they're in the space where they see it as obstacle or they see it difficult, that they understand that wherever they are, they can transform that situation into something beautiful and powerful.
Correct. Right. So there is nothing outside you have to look into. Just look inside and you can transform yourself every day.
That's
Every
right. So the distraction comes from when you're working from the different worlds that have been created through the outer influences. So those
but you are the one creating your own world outside.
Exactly, but you haven't learned because you don't have enough knowledge about who you are originally, and also everything that you are, and because of that, you just go by what you've been told and what you've been taught. So as a child, if I'm growing up as a child,
Right.
I listen to my parents because I see that they're the only resource for information. And then school is added to it. And then these
Right.
different groups are added to it. So
Right.
as I grow up, all these different groups and experiences have added their point of view to my understanding. So that's the whole process of individuation, is that I have to clean that up so that I come solely from what I choose to be and act upon.
Mhm. Yeah, but when you came into this world, I mean, you had a choice to come through these particular parents. It's not just you dropped off to that parent based on your karma and what you got connected with. Now, your parent, they have similarity. So you get the sanskar from them, not necessarily to enhance yourself, because they might have limitation too from the past.
Well, it's always the opportunities that you've created through, if you want to look at it from you choosing the parents or you choosing the culture, you choosing all the different aspects of that you're experiencing in this particular lifetime, all of it is for nothing more than for your expansion spiritually.
Right. But you had a choice though.
Well, most people are not conscious of the fact that they have a choice through their process of living. And they come to a point where that understanding awakens. So it's a journey.
No, but my question is, when you had a choice, why you came through this? You could have gone through something which can stop all the karma,
Well, that's a
and you
beautiful
can burn all the karma right there. So you don't have to come to this earth to begin
well,
with.
that's a beautiful question, and I think that that's something that you can explore in your meditation. Um, I don't have an answer for many of the questions. I certainly don't have the answer that's specific for every single soul and why they come into the journey that they're in. But I think that that's something that the soul can explore in their meditation and their personal sort of experience and connection to themselves. And I'm sure.
This is not for the individual soul. This is for all universe, all. This is, I'm talking universal soul.
Yeah.
Can you shed a little light on this? What is the difference between Raj Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Karma Yoga, and all other yoga in general? Just 1 or 2 minutes. I would appreciate that.
Well, the simplest thing that I can say, all yogas have the same intention.
Right,
And the intention is to connect you to your spiritual self,
right.
to move beyond the illusions of the distraction of you as a physical being and the
Mhm.
world itself. And by doing so, they have created different methods and techniques that allow the person to journey through it and
Mhm.
and come out with different outcomes.
Yeah, but there are three different aspects here: body, mind, and spirit.
As
Uh,
I as I as I as I as I pointed out before, that's what we're exploring here. That in order for you to fully,
because what I understood is this is the highest, that's what they claim, what I understand. But everybody claims the same way.
yeah,
So I don't think there is a competition that Raj Yoga is the best. Yeah, best for the person who is talking.
there's no competition. I think that there's just different. I think that a journey is for individual souls, and each
Correct.
individual soul is going to find the right path for
Right,
themselves.
right, right.
So
No,
there's
I
no,
understand that.
yeah. So I think that it's up to each individual to uncover
Mhm.
what path is best for them, because it'll be natural to them.
And also what I understand from Raj Yoga, that soul resides between two eyebrows, in the third eye, that
So you see the picture that I'm sharing now?
right, constant and in flux and constant, right?
Yeah, but also look at the images. The images of three components, basically through different phases. One
Mm-hmm.
is when an individual is living just as I am a physical body without the relationship with the spiritual space. And then the
Correct.
other is just a spiritual space without a relationship with the physical body, where a person is in the space of understanding and also practicing, where all they want is to be spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of living in the realization of what you are is to understand that these two components actually need to work together for you to live in
Mm-hmm.
harmony in a particular life.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the integrated self, so the soul and body
Mm-hmm.
need to be integrated accurately in order for it to function properly. And
But
meditation and yoga, basically yoga is connection. It's also medicine for the soul. And why it's a medicine for the soul is because it helps the soul wash away any of the illusions or distractions that keeps it away from itself, the understanding of itself. So meditation brings me to myself. That's
yeah,
all
but,
that's happening. And
yeah,
that's what
when you say in the middle, conscious integrated self, soul, body, there is no connection. They're all integrated, but they're separate. Once you separate it out, then the soul realize it. To become.
but that's the but you still have to function in the world. And what this is basically engaging is that in order for you to live harmoniously, you have to accept both the spiritual aspect and the physical aspect, so that you can live an integrated life where these two components become harmonious and they're responsive to each other, because it's the only way to actually live in this physical world. The soul cannot do or express itself without a physical body, and the body cannot function or be alive without a soul.
Yeah, that is right. But mind also plays. So all three has to be equanimity, right?
Actually, the reason why I this is very important, what you're bringing forth. Um,
Not only that, there is a fourth dimension also. Those are the
I'm
three.
sure.
Those are the lower dimension.
Yeah, so I'm sure that there's a lot of, so if you see the anatomy of the soul, actually in this particular graph, what you are experiencing is the idea, okay, the experience that the brain does not think, that the thinking is not an aspect of the brain, but it's actually an aspect of the soul. So it happens within the space of the soul, and
Correct.
the soul is actually sending magnetic vibrations into the
All the
brain.
right vibration. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the mechanics of thinking. So there are many aspects to it, but we we can go into those aspects in other classes. For this specific class, it's just really about learning about
Okay.
particular
Mhm.
aspects. There's
Yeah,
a
because
lot more.
there are so many infinite number, all the natural laws of karmas, involved in it.
Yeah, but this is not covering those at the moment. There are
Okay.
other classes that I share that deal specifically with karma, but this particular one is just about this particular point in terms of learning about the different instruments of the soul,
Mhm.
the nature of the soul, and then how it can be applied to a process in everyday moments, so that you
Okay.
can stabilize, harmonize, and create peace of mind in your process.
But this is basically all of worldly things we're talking about.
Well, we are living in this physical world, and because we are living in this physical world, we have to also. So the path is to bring spirituality into physical.
Okay.
So when the great sages, if you want to look at that, when the great sages achieved self-realization, they didn't automatically leave. Self-realization was something that they remained here and they
Mhm.
communicated, right? So
Mhm.
it's an important aspect of it's their realization of who they are in the space of physical. But what they were doing is they were imbuing their experience with spirituality. So I, the
Mhm.
spiritual being, am working in this physical realm,
Mhm.
and I am coloring this physical realm with spiritual experience.
Mhm. No, it's very beautiful. You have very depth of knowledge. That's why I'm asking. Maybe I can get some more insight.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome to ask as many questions. But I also would encourage you, if you're interested in further exploration of these concepts on a
Mhm.
deeper
So
level.
I'm doing daily. 2-3 hours Brahma Kumari and
Okay.
listening to Didi also.
Yeah. The approach that many people, again, we're all such individual souls, and we look at the experience from an individual perspective. But something that is that unites everybody is that
Mhm.
the understanding of the soul in terms of structurally is
Mhm.
the same,
Mhm.
that it's the same, and the overall cosmology, the world that we operate under, in terms of what a soul is, where it comes from, in terms of its origin, and the whole world that's created around it, is basically the same. It's just
Right.
we individually also string it together
Mhm. Mhm.
in the sense of our own experience.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fundamental question. The soul we're talking about.
Yeah.
In Brahma Kumari we learned. Dr. Shivani, I talked to her also. So basically, we talked that it's in the center of the,
Mhm.
third eye.
That's right.
Like what I experience it, not just talk. Okay, it's everywhere, living, non-living, every cell of your body, micro cell. So if you look at the physical aspect, it could be on the bottom of your leg, top of your head.
Yeah.
But the antenna is in the medulla. So it's a direct connection with the cosmos to charge. You don't need to charge
Yeah.
your battery every day.
Well, actually, there's different ideas about everything. So I cannot say that there's a singular idea towards the experience. One, as you notice in these particular images,
Mm-hmm.
I have pointed to the idea that the
Mm-hmm.
soul does exist in the point in the body where it's everybody's in agreement that it exists in. And
Mm-hmm.
also the form of the soul in terms of being light energy also
Mm-hmm.
is very similar, the same. But again, I think that we are at closure here. So I need
Okay.
to take a little minute to just bring everybody together in silence.
Okay.
And did anybody have any questions?
If
Any
you,
other
if
questions?
you can send this presentation, would be appreciated. Would be.
If
look
you
at-
want a recording of the overall talk, there is it's been recorded, so you can call the center, and I'm sure that they will make that available.
Okay, I'm talking about the slides only.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Did anybody need have any other questions? Okay, let's take a minute of silence and just go into that space of I, the pure spiritual being, and really focus on that energy of pure, I, the pure being, and hold that experience for 2 minutes.